Very reassuring words there. And we also spoke to George Hibberd. Now, he's a former commercial pilot for EasyJet. He actually worked there for 4 years as a pilot. And he's now a campaigner for a climate responsible aviation industry group. It's a worker-led group called Safe Landing. He's based in the United Kingdom. And he talked us through how pilots are actually trained.
I'm very lucky that I haven't had any experience of flying during a war situation. But what I can imagine as a pilot is it's very disruptive. There's lots of planes that have been grounded, your schedule is completely upended. It's going to really impact your work stability, first of all. I can imagine you're also going to be quite concerned about the safety of the flights. That's the number one priority in aviation. That has always been and always will be. So that safety element, thankfully, is something you don't really think about day to day, but this will be a completely new element to the flight. And just as a really small thing, you'll be taking much more fuel onto the aircraft because you'll be taking routes that you don't normally take to avoid Iran, obviously, and in case of like disruption at either end, because flights are all over the place at the moment. So ultimately, it's a really disruptive and quite anxiety-inducing situation.
Do pilots get trained for this, commercial pilots?
It's not, thankfully. What we do get trained in is threat and error management. And the threats that we normally face are really quite benign sort of threats, like disruption at airports, weather, storms, things like that. So we're trained in how to manage those things. We take extra fuel in case we need to take a different route or something disrupts us along the way, or we have a health emergency in flight. So I expect the procedures will be very similar, but the threat will come from a completely different place and a much more, as I say, anxiety-inducing place than a storm or a passenger getting ill.
So imagine you're going to be flying a plane in, say, Dubai or Abu Dhabi at the moment, and you're sitting in the cockpit. Who ultimately decides whether your flight can proceed, whether the airspace is safe enough for you to take off?
Ultimately, you'll be getting your flight from the airline, but the airline will be working with the authority of the country that you're working in. And no doubt they'll be in coalition working with the Air Force of said country to make sure that it's absolutely safe to do so. And they will really make sure of that. There won't be any ifs or buts. If it's not safe, the flight won't happen.
Are there situations where if you want to leave an airport or the airspace faster than normal, do you maybe accelerate faster or put flight, boosters on? You can tell I know nothing about this at all, but is there a way of getting off the runway and getting out of the airspace faster? Are there options there?
Yeah, there's always an option to accelerate. What's worth saying is when you're up at that sort of height in the cruise, the margin for what speed you can be is actually quite small for all sorts of reasons that's not worth going into. But you can accelerate to a point and change direction very easily. You will have a flight plan before you take off to see where you are planning to fly. But just like if you need to change direction because there's a storm that wasn't forecast or a passenger takes ill and needs to go in the complete opposite direction, it's very easy to get that instruction from air traffic control or make that decision yourself and fly in a different direction.
I'm interested by that, the sort of the autonomy that a pilot has when it comes to flight path. If you're, for example, leaving an airport, is there quite a set path that you are expected to take?
Yeah, you'll have a flight plan that you'll be given by the airline that you work for, and that'll be loaded into the aircraft so that you can see it at the planning stage. But what's always kept in your mind is this flight plan can change. So we may need to take extra fuel just in case something crops up, whether it's weather or now it's some sort of situation to do with war. And to leave your planned routes, the air traffic control can ask you to do that themselves. But if you see a reason that you need to change direction for whatever reason, you can request that of air traffic control and just make that decision yourself, because ultimately the direction and the safety of the flight is down to the captain of the aircraft.
From your experience, how big a focus is the safety of a flight and the safety of the airspace?
Safety is just absolutely paramount. Nothing else matters. There is, of course, usually when you're flying, there's this sort of balance between speed and the cost of the flight and all those sorts of things. But the airline takes ultimate control of that. So safety is the absolute priority. And as I say, pilots are highly, highly trained in threat and error management. Every decision we make is what is the safest thing to do. So we'll have loads of procedures for every eventuality. So we're highly trained in that. And this situation, whilst anxiety inducing and different to your normal operations, there will be plans in place for every sort of eventuality.
Obviously, this regional crisis has had a major impact on the aviation sector more widely. We've had around 35,000 flights cancelled so far. Several countries in the Middle East have had to close their airspace, and that's compressing the sort of major flight route across the centre of the world. What impact do you anticipate this to have on the global aviation sector going forward?
Well, yeah, as you say, a lot of flights have been grounded. We're also seeing the price of oil skyrocket. Shares in airlines are dropping. Some airfares are costing, I think Reuters said it's up to 7 times their normal price. So this is going to have a massive impact on passenger demand. And for an industry that works on quite small profit margins, this is going to have a really big impact. And this is coming on the back of a global pandemic, not 6 years ago.